At the specific time I typed these words into a Google Doc, Marvel's Thunderbolts Asterix was released a week ago to the praise of feeling like a real movie. 2 days earlier, the same company dropped the second arc of Andor's second season on Disney+. Now, I don't want to say these are exactly equal, because I liked one of these a little bit more than the other. How could you not when one of them was Florence Pugh? But the critical and probably eventually commercial reception to these franchise continuations makes something clear to me. The people yearn for real stuff. Actually, no, never mind. I'm being told these were good because they weren't woke and they don't hate men or something, I guess. Or maybe these projects were good because they weren't just lowest common denominator brand extensions, but stories made by people for people. It's probably the anti-woke thing. Thunderbolts Asterix was directed by Jake Schreier, and there's a better chance you knew his name than there have been for most of these recent MCU movies. Quick, who directed Black Widow? If your first answer was Zack Snyder, you would be wrong, and I would be confused how you arrived at such a conclusion. The correct answer is Kate Shortland, so give yourself a round of applause if you were right. No shade to Miss Shortland, I'm sure she's a lovely person, and I thought Black Widow was one of the better directed MCU movies of recent years, but Marvel movies, with some exceptions, are usually not particularly compelling as a piece of director-driven art, nor are they marketed as such. Except for Thunderbolts Asterix, which is proud to tell you they hired the writers and a director from the A24 Netflix show Beef to helm their latest cinematic excursion. This is, admittedly, only for one trailer, but it was, at least online, a pretty prominent part of the marketing. And in all honesty, even if people did not know who directed Thunderbolts Asterix, which is probably the majority of the people going to see it, they were aware of the praise it was getting. Anecdotally, one person I talked to in line for Thunderbolts Asterix said he was not particularly excited for the film, but the good reviews made him want to check it out. And I stood right next to him in line for that very same reason. Or I guess right behind him, but you get what I'm saying. Sure, it had a worse opening weekend than Brave New World, but that came out on Valentine's Day, so I'm sure ticket sales were boosted from all the couples who wanted to kiss while President Red Hulk destroyed the White House. And also Captain America has more appeal to general audiences than Thunderbolts Asterix does. But Thunderbolts Asterix did do astoundingly better than Marvel's last movie and show continuation team-up in The Marvels, and it's because they removed all the woke from this one. In all seriousness, there was little connection from audiences to Thunderbolts Asterix the way there was for Captain America. The Marvels was a crossover from different movies and shows, and it flopped partially because people weren't big fans of it, but also because a lot of people skipped out on Miss Marvel. Thunderbolts Asterix is, in theory, no different, as it incorporates a lot of characters from Marvel Disney Plus shows, like John Walker, Val, and to some extent Yelena, as one of her only two major appearances so far in the MCU was in Hawkeye. Most people aren't showing up to see this because they love these characters or because they'll watch anything with Florence Pugh. I mean, I kinda did though. They're watching it because it's good. Thunderbolts Asterix has some level of emotional depth and pathos. It makes me care about this wacky group of depressed misfits. It has good fight choreography, and it's shot on real locations and directed with some style. People are actually responding to this, to the practicality and emotion, and Marvel and Disney made the choice to market this film on the talent of their artists, rather than just relying on people's love of the brand, because they wanted people to know this was a real movie. This isn't to call Thunderbolts Asterix some great work of cinema. A real movie is not exclusively a great movie, but it feels like a Marvel movie from when these things were consistently really good, and it feels like a movie with more meaning and purpose than simply to continue the franchise. On the topic of stuff with meaning, Andor is probably the most beloved piece of Star Wars media Disney has produced, and a lot of this is because the show actually has something to say. In the same vein of Thunderbolts Asterix, Andor is compelling because of its characters, themes, and stylistic filmmaking, rather than the audience's pre-established connection to Cassian Andor. People like Rogue One, but Andor doesn't have the same draw as Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, or Ahsoka. Unlike Thunderbolts Asterix, Andor doesn't feel like a return to a previous form of storytelling, the way the first two seasons of The Mandalorian did by incorporating a lot of the Western tropes and archetypes George Lucas was inspired by when making the original trilogy. It feels like something new. It takes place in a familiar time period, but it explores it in a way we've never seen before. Everything about the world and characters feels fleshed out, and the way these stories come together feels incredibly meaningful. Also, unlike Thunderbolts Asterix, I feel like Andor is more mature in its storytelling and themes, but it's 12 times longer and is allowed to appeal to a smaller subset of the fanbase. Both seasons feel like meaningful explorations of how fascism tries to exert its control and how people fight back, and it explores a lot of the nuances involved in retaliating. A lot of the tension in the series comes from figuring out the logistics of supporting a rebellion, exploring everything from how it gets funding, how it's organized, and how leaders make decisions on where and when to make sacrifices. Likewise, the show depicts the importance of fighting back against oppression and fascism. The entire first season is dedicated to showing what drives Andor to join the cause. He starts out just wanting to run from it, wanting to live his life and not have to think about the suffering brought by the Empire, but there is no escape. The Empire takes and takes, and he can either give in or give everything fighting them. One of my favorite lines in the show comes from the Narkina 5 arc, when Cassian tells Andy Serkis's Kino Loy,
"And I would rather die trying." take them down than giving them what they want.
I've heard that some people who enjoy the show wish it wasn't a Star Wars show, and they think its story would be better in an original science fiction universe, but to me, part of what makes the show great is its existence in the Star Wars universe. This powerful, meaningful, relevant exploration of fascism, rebellion, and sacrifice exists on one of the biggest streaming services as a continuation of one of the biggest film and television franchises. This story and its themes are being broadcast and seen by more people because of its connection to Star Wars. And yeah, some Star Wars fans won't like it, and some will ignore the themes of the show. I found it kind of boring when I first watched it, but rewatching it now, I think it's one of my favorite and one of the best things to ever come from Star Wars, and I'm excited to see such an impactful and emotional story come from a world-famous brand. Like Thunderbolts Asterix, Andor did not have the popularity of shows based on more beloved characters, but once again, like Thunderbolts Asterix, it connects with the people who watch it, so its viewership stays more consistent than a lot of other Disney Plus Star Wars programming. Season 2 also currently has the highest rated episode of Star Wars television, so I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a bit more popular among fans and casual viewers in the near future. Now, you may or may not have noticed, but neither of these are giant, unprecedented successes. As much as I'd like to, I'm not talking about Sinners here, though I probably will at a later date because it's been all I can think about for these past couple of weeks. But neither Thunderbolts Asterix nor Andor were record-breaking smash hits, at least in terms of box office and viewership, so what's to say this isn't just a fluke, Disney's content checker accidentally letting some art through? If you're willing to believe the leaks, then Disney is to say, because apparently they've offered Jake Schreier the director's chair for the MCU's X-Men movie. If you want some less flimsy evidence, look at Thunderbolts Asterix's box office for its second week, where it made 55% less in the US than it did in its opening weekend, at $33 million. This may not sound like much, and for Marvel it usually isn't, but in the context of their recent cinematic jaunts, it's one of their best. Compared to the aforementioned Captain America, Thunderbolts Asterix did really well, making more in its second weekend than Brave New World did in its, and coming off of a lower opening weekend. Thunderbolts Asterix is currently only $12 million away from where Brave New World was at the same time in its theatrical run, and I would be surprised if it doesn't end up being the more successful of the two. While this certainly isn't on the level of Deadpool and Wolverine's success last year, Disney and Marvel put their money where their mouths were by making a movie with substance, and though not everyone is watching it, the people who watch it are responding. On the Andor side of things, I have no idea what the show's critical success and audience hold means for Star Wars, because I don't think Star Wars knows what it means for Star Wars. Hopefully, it means giving talented filmmakers a chance to take the franchise in a new and compelling direction, but given the upcoming slate of Star Wars movies and shows, I don't know about that one, Chief. Ah well, a guy can dream. I still think the outstanding critical success of Andor is something Disney can't miss, and I would guess they are probably trying to figure out how to recapture this level of acclaim for future Star Wars projects. Now, why is this important? After all, these are only a couple of Disney projects, and the biggest movie in theaters right now does not exactly fit the whole meaningful story thing I've been getting at. Well, first off, I think Minecraft is a special case because it's based on one of the most popular video games ever, so people would probably watch it even if it made Kraven the Hunter look like the Godfather. To address the bigger point, this is important because I want popular movies to have some grain of substance. I'm not asking for Charlie Kaufman to write and direct the next Ant-Man. Not every movie has to be insanely deep and layered and metaphorical. I just want to not feel complete apathy when watching a Star Wars or Marvel movie, which is why I hope Thunderbolts Asterix and Andor are a sign for the future. There are always going to be movies with creativity and soul. Small budget and indie filmmakers have been making those kinds of movies for longer than I've been alive, and they'll continue to make them long after I'm gone. But I want the movie the film industry pours the bulk of its resources into to be made with care and purpose, and I want franchise installments to explore something new and emotionally compelling, rather than reheating the same story beats we've seen time and time again. Thunderbolts Asterix and Andor are probably not going to fix every problem with the film industry, but I hope they are a sign of where the film industry is headed. Looking to the future, this summer is promising a few big movies based as much on IP as they are in the talent of their filmmakers, most notably F1 and Superman. Though these are heavily marketed around the brands they spawn from, the posters and trailers for F1 are proud to tell you the film is from the director of Top Gun Maverick, and half of Superman's marketing campaign is James Gunn. To be fair, the live-action Lilo and Stitch is coming out right around when I'm releasing this, and it will probably make a ton of money and throw a wrench into everything I've been saying, but the system getting better is different than the system suddenly being great. This may be the start of a big change, but it's still only a start. I know good movies will continue to flop and not-so-great movies will continue to do well, but I think, on the whole, people are wanting to see stories with emotion and character and visual flair. In short, nature is healing.